Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Our guest today, Sachi Kittur. Sachi, please tell us where you are in the world, where you're calling in from, and what you do for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited to be here. I'm actually based I'm your north neighbor in Canada. Hopefully
Awesome.
you've got some listeners here from Canada as well. Based out of Toronto, live in the city. And I've got a bunch of businesses to reference, but really my main venture is a CPG brand called Sachili. And the interesting thing is, if you've heard about the Chili Crunch debacle the last 2 weeks, we're actually a Chili Crunch product. So we're a flavor company based out of Toronto, available across North America. And we're kind of on a mission to bring inspiring flavors into consumer kitchens. And the idea with our product, which is a ready-to-eat topping, you can virtually sprinkle it on any meal, any cuisine, anytime. So it's cuisine agnostic, and it's really there to amp up the flavors of foods that you and I are enjoying every single day.
I love that term. It's actually the first time I've heard it, cuisine agnostic. That is an incredible term.
Really great term. I know. People get a kick out. People do stop in their tracks.
That's amazing. What has been the chili crisp debacle? And it's very interesting. I actually just met with somebody else doing not chili crisp, but it was actually a jalapeno crisp. It was a gentleman based out of Mexico City, and instead of doing chili crisp, he was doing jalapeno crisp. It was very similar, but what was the chili crisp debacle?
So
not
the chili
here.
crunch debacle right now, if you know the brand Momofuku, they have a very well-known it's called a chili crunch condiment. And the chef, very well-known, David Chung, and I'm not saying anything that hasn't already been in the media, he actually went out and trademarked chili crunch. And he sent out cease and desist letters to a bunch of brands. I didn't get it, even though we use Chili Crunch. I was kind of waiting for it. And there was a lot of backlash in terms of, well, you can't own a condiment name.
Right.
It's like somebody saying, I own mayonnaise, right? And the term mayonnaise. And so because of all the backlash, I just read on Monday, he dropped the trademark for Chili Crunch and revoked all the cease and desist letters.
Okay. Interesting. No, I did not hear that. And honestly, I feel like I've heard the term chili crisp more. Am I wrong in that, do you think? Is chili crunch the proper term for this?
Yeah, chili crisp and chili crunch, I think, are a bit synonymous. You're right. Chili crisp, I think, is kind of the original Asian reference. And then I think it's become on trend with consumers. You're seeing chili crunch, chili crisp, chili jalapeno. I've seen chili oil, so a bunch of different references. But quite often they're one and the same.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, what got you interested in this space, a little bit about your background, and what was also kind of walk me up to, what was your big catalyst to, turning this from an idea to an actually full-blown brand and business this way?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my background is, and I get asked this on podcasts all the time, and I always age myself, but it's okay. I got to speak in numbers. So I did spend 25 years in high growth tech companies. These are hyper growth entrepreneurial businesses. My job, while the CEO was building and scaling the business, my job was to actually build and grow the people culture side of the business. So that's the world I knew. In many ways, I was groomed in an entrepreneurial sort of ecosystem. And so in about 2018, I had this product, chili crunch topping, that I was creating in my own kitchen. A lot of interest, a lot of food CPG founders started this way. And I ended up, just kind of playing around with it at farmers markets and came up with this brilliant idea. There's no product like ours in the market because we're like a crumble. So we're like a chili oil without the oil in many ways.
Gotcha.
So I started it on a part-time basis while still employed. And once we hit 200 stores, I thought, okay, now I have to kind of go all in. And so I went all in about 18 months ago.
That's amazing. What, if you don't mind me asking, what stores are you generally in? But of those 200 stores, where are they?
Yeah, so now we're probably in about 500 stores, but in Canada, listen,
Nice.
Canada is a much more different market. You guys have 500 to 800 regional players alone in Canada. Get ready for this if you don't know this. 5 dominant retailers that own
Really?
market.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. I did not know that. I've not heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an oligopoly. I mean, competition is not, there's no such thing, in my humble
Right.
opinion. Having said that, we're in 3 out of the 5 stores.
That's great.
We
Yeah. And what are you in like a specific province mainly or
Ontario. Yep. So mostly in
Ontario?
Ontario. We're expanding onto the West Coast, probably in the next sort of 3 to 6 months.
Hmm.
But to be honest, we think the future is D2C. So we're going to invest more going forward into Shopify and Amazon. We
That's
think
awesome.
we think our consumer is going to growth is going to come in those channels.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There seems to be a lot of different perspectives on that, and I don't think any of which are necessarily right or wrong, or it's just, I feel like there's just a lot of opportunities for success in multiple channels doing D2C today. I mean, if you
Yeah,
listen
I mean,
to like many of the recent podcasts that we've done, there's some are 100% direct to consumer with like very low ticket items, like $2 to $3 items.
I know.
And they're just doing the
I know.
volume enough to make it work. And some are almost completely whell. So that's really interesting. So
Yeah.
tell me more about that. Why do you see so much growth on the D2C side?
I think if you look at listen, I think at the end of the day, you have to follow your customer. Where are they going?
Hmm.
Where are they shopping? Where are they looking? Where are they discovering? And I think I've got kids that are Gen Z. I know millennials really well. And I don't think I know anybody that steps into a big box retailer to do any type of shopping. It's either online or it's your local specialty stores. So I think the idea is I want to be able to forecast 2, 3, 4 years. Where are my consumers going to be scaling and growing and going to for products like Sachili? And I believe it's going to either be online or it's going to be the new concept that we're seeing, which is premium gourmet convenience, which is kind of the local mom and pop, local store that's close to my
Right.
house. I have to hop in the car and drive somewhere and haul bags of groceries. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my prediction. I could be wrong.
No, I mean it definitely makes sense, right? When you think about it, and I think just from a business owner perspective too, I think a lot of CPG businesses that are making like really great and like groundbreaking products, not necessarily putting their trust in wholesale as much anymore. I especially
Yeah.
companies that started when yours did, like 2017, 2018, because people saw that could be ripped right from under you basically at any time. I mean, whether it's COVID or maybe you're just not hitting your numbers exactly like they wish. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be pretty heartless sometimes in that business. So I think at
100%.
least an omni-channel approach is what is sustainable. If not, I mean, I hear from a lot of folks that are like looking to nurture D2C even more. It seems to be more sustainable, especially and just having that direct like relationship with your customers is so important
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And you also get the biggest gap, I think, in the wholesale channel or retail channel is I don't know my customer behavior. My
Yeah.
retailer is sharing some data, but I think those customer insights on D2C really help you, fine tune and iterate in terms of what you're offering, how you're offering it, price point, feedback. And so I think that feedback cycle is really missing, and that creates missed opportunities.
Yeah, no, it does. It's difficult. And I mean, even if it's a smaller part of your business, I mean, just gaining those insights from your, 20 to 30% of your customers that are buying direct is so valuable and so important, for continuous product development, continuous, pricing development and all those kinds of things, like you mentioned. So I think you have a really good perspective on that. And so what are you kind of thinking as far as, growing the D2C channels that you exist in, whether it's
Yeah.
Amazon or your website? I mean, what kind of like
So
marketing channels do you plan on utilizing to keep that growth there?
Yeah, so I think, listen, if you look at SEM paid marketing on D2C, it's getting expensive. The ROI is really so. If I spend $1 on Facebook 2 years ago, the return on that is going to be easily 50 to 80% less today. So I got to spend two,
Mm,
three, 4 times more. And I don't think that trend is going to go away. So not that that doesn't come into play, but I really think influencer marketing is the future. I think that consumers are wary of any type of advertisement, promoting products, even if it's a lifestyle positioning, whatever have you. But I do think that consumers will trust other consumers. So that's where I envision us spending, more of our marketing spend. And really and it's trial and error. What you and I think today in 6 months, I could go implement it and I find out that it's actually not the right mix. So
yeah.
just be open to iterating and shifting, I think is the key.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so when you think about your, kind of influencer and like lifestyle, maybe like that side of marketing, how would you kind of categorize, the messaging that you're trying to send through those channels? I mean, I'd look at the website, I see it's like, it's very elegant, it's very
Yeah.
informational, which I love.
Yeah.
Well, is that the kind of general like messaging you think you're going to stick with influencers, like maybe influencers
Yeah.
that are actually doing like gourmet cooking and things like that?
Yeah, I think with our product, and you're gonna see this on our website. I think with our product, it's really about bringing inspiration into people's kitchens, right? I mean, I'm sure there's days you come home, even for me, I come home and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to cook, and I'm just out of ideas, and
Yeah.
I don't want to fry up an egg again. And I think Sachili, because it's this sort of versatile, it's clean, it's more flavor, it's not a heat. I'm not a hot sauce. I'm not trying to replace the hot sauce on your countertop. I think it offers up a really unique opportunity to get consumers actually excited in their kitchen again, because you can just take fried eggs plain, or you can add Sachili to it, and it'll literally go from blah to gourmet. And so that's kind of the idea, is that keeping that inspiration with simple everyday ingredients that consumers probably have in their kitchen at any given time.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I could imagine something like this. I mean, it's kind of new, I think, in the like the Canadian and U.S. market. I think Fly by Jing was like the first big
Yeah,
like chili crisp. I remember it was like huge on
yeah,
social media. Kind
yeah,
of got everybody's attention with like, oh, this is a
yeah.
thing. Like this is the greatest thing ever. So and I actually ordered it years ago. Then it was first like making the rounds on social media, and they actually sent me like along with the bottle of the product like a bunch of ways to use it, a bunch of recipes,
You got
and
it.
like I can see I see a lot of CPG brands obviously doing that with very like kind of novel or like maybe like more like ascending ideas that are like new
Yeah,
ingredients or new types of flavors in the US and just like general North American market. So
yeah.
I
Yeah,
do anything like that now?
we do. Actually, I was
Yeah.
just going to say the single best marketing idea that we came up with. I'm going to see if I actually have a jar of my product here, and I'm going to see if I can get you to see it. But you can actually see we have
Oh,
food
cool.
collage on the lid of every single jar,
Yeah, I
and this
like
is
that.
down the number one most effective marketing effort we've put into play, because really the idea is every time you open it up, you've got pizza, eggs, grilled veggies, wraps, sushi, avocado toast. I mean, there's and French fries, endless inspiration. And I think again, it lends itself well to, trial and
Hmm.
continue in terms of
Yeah, and I
how
can
do
see
you.
you see that sitting in your fridge every time you open the fridge. Oh, I'm about to heat up some pizza. It says pizza right here. Okay, let's try that.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. We hear it all the time, all the
Yeah.
time.
No, that's smart. Where did you get that idea? Were you was that inspired by something else or like
No, I think it was honestly, it was just I took what I was repeating at farmers markets, because farmers market, when we initially got started, customers would be like, "Hey, Sachi, how do I use it?" And so we ended up just taking what we were already sharing and the ideas and just threw it into onto a collage.
that's awesome.
So yeah,
Yeah,
just to make it
that's an
easy.
amazing idea. I love that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I could see like for instance, just like imagining an influencer just like talking about like here's five dishes you can make with Sachili,
yeah,
or something like
yeah.
that.
You got
Yeah,
it.
that's really cool. So I'm just curious, like as you sit right now, I know you said you're in 500 stores in Ontario now. So what's kind of the breakdown of your like wholesale revenue? Just to give me specific numbers, just like as like a percentage of your revenue.
90%. Yeah, definitely right now, 90% of our revenues
Yeah.
are coming from retailers.
Hmm.
10% are mixed in between D2C, and we're actually getting into food service. So my revenue forecast for the next 2 to 3 years, I think, is going to not necessarily be inverse, but definitely a 50-50 split between retail, wholesale. And
Right.
then the other 50% really should be coming from something other than, so it could be a combination of D2C food service, it could be even direct small mom and pop retailers where I don't have a distributor and I don't have the overhead associated with that. So
Hmm.
probably about a 50-50 in the coming years.
Yeah, no, that's great. And food service is actually, yeah, I could definitely see that. So the angle with food service, I'm curious, like, are you looking more to like to get on menus in that way, or for it to kind of be like a table side sort of thing,
Yeah,
food service that
actually
way?
both. At least
Yeah,
actually both. So we have food service where it's back of the kitchen and
right.
they've got a couple of recipes where Sachili is a key ingredient, or it could be in a little shaker jar at the table and accessible for customers to
Hmm.
sprinkle on if they're eating.
Now you said it's not oil based like maybe
Uh,
some of these other are, right? It's
Yeah,
dry.
it's dry.
Oh,
It's
okay.
roasted in oil. So we actually have a proprietary. I think the idea is with our product, we say you actually, unlike traditional seasonings, you don't cook with it. You don't have to heat it up. We slow roast it like coffee beans. So it's a proprietary cooking
Okay.
process. We slow roast it in big drums, and the way you roast coffee beans and the way you make granola. And the idea is so we do add a little bit of oil to optimize sort of the flavors and the balance, the umami balance. And the interesting thing with Sachili, we often say is you get the all senses. So you get sweet, you get savory, you get crunch, you get a little bit of heat. And so the idea is that umami balance is really
Mm,
significant for our products.
that's amazing. Yeah. And yeah, no, I've not seen one that's dry that way. I feel like everybody's kind of just been like all the new like kind of upcoming ones are just kind of like fly by Jing,
Yeah, it's
like
all oil.
again, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at even D2C, I know a lot of brands who have oil-based chili products. And if you look at D2C, there's a lot of issues around shipping, leakage, uh,
Hmm.
which doesn't really lend itself well to a D2C strategy. So I know that alone positions us well in terms of being able to kind of ship with minimal issues.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and like even just the weight of like anything liquid at all, just like drives the weight of your packaging up like crazy, and then like God forbid
Exactly.
you need it refrigerated, like forget about it almost. Yeah, yeah. It's a big struggle I hear from a lot of especially like these like cold iced tea or like cold pressed juices and things. It's really hard because it's heavy and it needs to be cold, and
Yeah.
I feel it's difficult because I know that people are at a crossroads with a lot of these brands of thinking like, well, if we just decided to use a preservative, we would not have half of this problem. But like you just can't because that's like the bottom line of so many of these new and growing brands, and that's what people love about it is
Totally.
there isn't any other preservatives, and
Yeah.
it's all organic and just natural ingredients. But it does pose new challenges. So
Yeah,
um,
it is. It is. I think the trend consumer asks are all in good for you categories. So
yeah.
if your product cannot be, accurately represented in that category, then
Hmm.
you're gonna be challenged to get the attention of consumers.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so I guess I'm curious too. I think the only vertical we have not touched on is maybe like I don't think this would probably not be like a good fit for yours being so like proprietary and unique, but obviously private labeling is a an option for a lot of CPG brands. Maybe get big but struggle with a marketing message, but still have like a good amount of sales or like could just know that it performs well and gets good reviews. So if you consider that at all, has anybody approached
Yeah,
you for
it's
any
funny you
opportunities like that?
say that. Yes, we were approached last year by a fairly large regional retailer on the northeast of the US.
Hmm.
And we did our due diligence, and we're actually almost at the latter stages of making that happen. That'll
Cool.
be our first private label customer.
That's awesome.
Uh, so I think if you look at, again, it goes back to what I talked about, marketing spend, getting brand awareness, getting the attention of consumers is becoming very, very expensive. The beauty of private label is as long as I'm not married to my brand and we're only offering one or two flavors in private label right now, I think the opportunity is if your COGS are really good and your margins are tight, or your margins
Hmm.
are high and your COGS are tight, I think the private label is pretty much it's like a no-brainer because I literally just make it, produce it, ship it. And I don't need to worry about demo. I don't need to worry about, marketing, merchandising. That's all
Hmm.
on the retailer once they private. So it's going to be a test for us to see if it makes sense for us. But my gut says that's going to be a much easier business model.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's and then I'm always surprised. Like I feel like so many people I talk to are so like averse to that idea of doing it. I think people get a little wary with like especially when they have like kind of novel ideas that are not
Yeah,
necessarily like legally protected to the extent maybe they could be because
true.
it's a growing
Mhm.
business and that's a big expense to do that. So I think people have some like concerns that way. What do you kind of what would you say to somebody who kind of has those concerns or maybe is like who's been approached with like a private labeling opportunity and maybe is just
Yeah.
wary because like they don't want to give up the brand or they don't want to like put the they don't want to put the product in somebody's hands to potentially be like replicated or something.
Yeah, I'd say, listen, do your homework. It's no different
Hmm.
than hiring. It's no different than when you build partnerships with co-packers. Kind of do your homework. Don't rush into anything. Get to understand who's interested, why they're interested, what's their reputation.
Hmm.
And I have a universal rule of thumb. You have to feel aligned on values, both as a business and as a founder. And so to me, that's my guiding principle. And so in the example that I shared, within 3 to 4 conversations, the retailer that we were working with were phenomenal and amazing to work with. And I also think it's getting highly competitive. So don't be naive in thinking that if you have brand success and awareness today, that, over the coming years, I think it's a good contingency plan. Maybe just
Hmm.
dip your toes in, do a test run like we're doing, and see what comes of it. But you really have to be open to new ways, new ideas of growing and scaling your business. You can't get stuck in the same lane.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's probably the biggest like common denominator I hear from very like seemingly sustained and successful businesses in the CPG spaces, really just maintaining an omni-channel approach to things. I mean, you could be 80% somewhere, but that other 20% is like kind of your contingency plan where, if something else like COVID happens again, your wholesale deals all go underneath. Like at least you still have that 20%. At least you're not going from, all of it to nothing. That happened to a lot of brands, I'm sure during COVID. They were just
Yeah.
100% wholesale, and the wholesale retailers couldn't sustain it. Most of those brands got pulled from those shelves, and like, yeah, I guess you could keep it online, like in the online store, but then it's like, what you were focused on and selling off the shelf is how it looks on the shelf. How it looks online is a totally different thing, and that's a whole nother journey. So, yeah, I think you have a really balanced and even keeled approach to that. I think people should kind of take that into account.
Yeah.
Just to maintain this like kind of omni-channel approach to it. It's good for
Totally.
sustainability for the future. Yeah.
Totally. And with private label, the one thing I forgot to add,
Sure.
Matt, is that I think sometimes founders are too emotionally attached to the brand and they're actually not willing to let it go. And I'd say again, you have to keep a bit of an arm's length and ask yourself, is this decision because of the emotion, or is it really because of the business
Yeah.
business
And I think
strategy?
that's one of those pieces of advice that's like in business and in life. It's like everything that you do, that's a perspective you need to have, because yeah,
100%.
the ego
100%.
gets in your way, and no matter where you are, it's always going to be one step ahead of you if you let it be. Yep.
Yeah. I think, because I have life experience, I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn and around just leadership and human interaction and behavior. And I'd say if you start taking away ill intent, whether it's a business engagement or whether it's personal, you just take away that lens of someone's out to get you, or this is, you're going to get the short in this. If you just take that away, you'd be amazed the great things that can happen, right? In that
Hmm.
positive lens and positive mindset. And, somebody's, has good intentions. Because that's where the ego, I think, sometimes gets a little entangled.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Self-interested, right?
very, yeah, no, I mean, it's a very like tense world we're in today. I mean, there's a lot of sharks out there that are trying to do these like, just kind of shady practices, but you trust your gut, you'll see that right away. I mean, it's really hard to get away with something like that if your eyes are open. If
Oh,
somebody comes, you trust your gut and have some positivity going into a new interaction or a new partnership, and it
yeah,
seems good. But I think some people maybe do take it too far and just stay like still like very like too wary,
yeah.
in those situations. Like,
Oh,
you can
that's it.
usually tell if you do a little diligence, like you say, you can usually
Yeah,
tell, and like you can hear from other people. I mean, the internet's wide open. You can hear 100
yeah.
reviews for
Yeah,
anybody
why
that you're
not?
potentially working with, and
Absolutely.
if it looks
Absolutely.
weird, then don't do it. If it doesn't look weird, then it's probably okay.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So there's one question I always like to ask everybody that comes on the podcast. Obviously you're about, what is it, 6 to 7 years now in this venture, since 2018, right? 2017, 2018.
See, 2019, I think, is when it kind of got
2019.
started on a part-time basis. Yeah, full-time about 2 years, 2.5 years. So
Okay.
still young, but yeah, the product concept itself started about 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome. So there's actually perfect framing for this question, because you kind of and like spend 5 or 6 years, but really like 2 feet in for the past 2 years. So I think
yeah,
it's actually a perfect frame for this question, which is, if you could go back to the inception of the brand,
yeah,
either 2 years ago or really at the start when you first had the idea, if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice, business, personal, whatever it is, what do
yeah.
you think that one piece of advice would be?
Yeah, so I'm nodding my head because I know exactly what it is. And I think I've gone through this thought process a few times. And I think it's simple. I think in the age of digital sort of information, LinkedIn, social channels, I think we as founders get heavily influenced by what others are doing, what milestones are they achieving? Geez, they're
Hmm.
all in this many stores. Wow, they're already doing this. And I think that is that's a rabbit hole that every founder needs to avoid. And I think everybody's journey is unique. Everyone's chapter is unique. And the advice I'd give myself is because I'm a type A, I'm a high achiever, and I got too caught up in speed and speed to market. And I think if I had to do it again, I'd tell everybody, slow down. Stay in your lane, focus on your vision, your value prop. Yeah, you got to keep a pulse on competitors. No one's asking you not to do that, but don't let that lens sort of trigger you from scaling in a meaningful way. Because sometimes you end up making bad decisions just for the sake of speed. And so, yeah, that's what I'd say. And then really related to that, do not, just because it's shiny and somebody wants you or somebody wants your product, it doesn't mean it's good for your business. And it took me I had to learn the hard way. And now I say no. I just said no to a 45 retail store here locally that I've been working with for a long time. But the deal, what they were asking was not in my best interest. And so I think you have to scrutinize. Look out for yourself. Do what's best for you, your business. Don't worry about everybody else and what they're doing.
No, it's fair enough. I think it's really good advice because there's definitely a difference between, keeping tabs on competitors just for a knowledge basis, and then, just trying to replicate because they've perceived more success than you have. And I mean,
Well,
you really go down that rabbit hole just on social media in general. I mean, what do you see on TikTok all the time? I use this example all the time when I have these types of conversations, because I see this kid on TikTok all the time, and he's like this really like deadpan face, and he's like, I made $1 million last month selling envelopes to grandmas on Facebook. I'll show you how to do it too. And then you got to buy his course. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, like, okay, you could probably tell that story's not true, but also like, this is an angle for you to buy this guy's course. Like, so like, don't take that as an example of like what success even can look like, because that's not real.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially
Yeah.
things that are really close to you and what you're doing, because that can affect you even more. Like if you let it. I mean, you hear a million success stories, and you could try to replicate like things at a high level, hearing things like that on social media, but especially things close to you, you can really go down that rabbit hole with that kind of stuff. So I think that's really great advice. Any entrepreneurs listening, young or old, not even in age, but just in experience, maybe they're off on doing CPG for the first time. I think it's really good advice for anybody listening. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
And then I also just want to give you a quick opportunity to be able to just shout out your socials, your website, all that good stuff. Anybody listening that want to get in touch with you, maybe for a potential partnership or just want to buy, you'll let people know how to stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. So our number one channel in the US right now is definitely Amazon.com. We keep selling out of Sachili, so we're replenishing it. We have a really, really nice regular customer base. If you're curious, you want to try it, we will be opening up Shopify US in about 2 months.
Awesome.
And handles are Sachili flavors across faith. So at Sachili, FLAVORS, the US way. I took a double take there. The US way of spelling flavors. And so it's at Sachili Flavors. You can check us out, TikTok, Instagram, and very active on LinkedIn too. And if you have any feedback, if you've tried the product, I'd love to hear from you. I always respond to all the DMs I get.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you again, Sachi, for your time, and I wish you best of luck and continued success.
Thank you. This was fun. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.